Welcome, obnoxious brutes, forum members, and anybody else who happens to stumble in, lifters and non-lifters alike. This is the 5th weekly Q&A video that I've made in response to questions from the forum. And I have to tell you, it's getting bigger and bigger every week. We've gotten a bunch of good questions this week from Pink, that's P7NK, Jughead96, R32. I asked ChatGPT what your name meant. I've seen you around the forums forever, but I never knew what your name meant. ChatGPT thinks R32 refers to a Nissan car, and Gohira is, ChatGPT thinks is an Asian accent applied to Godzilla. I always thought that looked like gorilla, so you tell me, which one is it? Come at me, bro. GD585, Average Kenneth, Large Peter, Sand, all caps, Southeast Beast 1, but at what cost, and leg broke. And then we have one very strange, highly suspicious question from a very strange, highly suspicious little person who goes by the name Amog, A-M-O-G. There you go, Amog. You got your 15 seconds of attention that you were seeking. So hope you got what you wanted out of that. Let's move on to the questions. Pink, P7NK says, wings, do I like drums or flats on the wings? And then he proceeds to call me a boomer and wonders if I'll even know what the hell he's talking about. It has been at least 3 years since I've had anything wing related like that, Pink, but I can assure you that in my days of weighing 300 pounds plus and upwards of 392 pounds, I did have my share of wings. And I have to be honest with you, I'm probably, I don't know, I can go either way, but probably a drumstick, probably the drum. I don't have any special reason for that, but it feels like you get more meat and it's easier to get it off of one bone rather than the two. Jughead96 says, how many pull-ups can I do? You know, I haven't actually have an appointment with an orthopedic doctor on Monday. I've had, this right arm has been bothering me for a good long time, and it's from the shoulder all the way down to the elbow. And sometimes I think it's tendonitis, and sometimes I think it's arthritis, and sometimes I have a nurse practitioner that I train out here in the gym, and you know, I've talked to her about it quite a bit, and she thinks it might even be bursitis. I won't know until I have some imaging done. I'm going on Monday to have it looked at. I say all that to say this. I'm afraid to do pull-ups. When I do them, I've done recently as many as 5, 6, 7, 8 maybe at a time. I think if I trained for it and I did them weekly, I could probably do maybe 3 sets of 10 or 3 sets of 12, something like that. But I'm afraid to really do it because it just doesn't feel, being supinated with all that weight on this arm, it feels dangerous. So until I know exactly what I'm operating with on this arm, I don't want to tear a biceps or rip something over here. So I could go over there right now and do 5, 6, 7 probably, but it would be painful on this right arm probably. Do I hunt or fish? Jughead96 says, I don't hunt. I've never been hunting before. I do own a handgun, but I wasn't raised around guns, and I'm not a gun guy. Like I say, I do own a handgun. I took a few. I felt like to be a responsible adult, I felt like I needed to have one maybe 10 years ago. So I took several gun safety courses and bought a handgun. And so I own one and know how to operate it and have been to the shooting range with it a few times, but I'm not much of a gun guy. I did grow up fishing my whole life, and as an adult, I do a lot less of it because there's a lot less time to do stuff like that. But I did grow up fishing Old Hickory Lake in Middle Tennessee, and there's lots of creeks that lead into Old Hickory Lake that I spent a lot of time fishing. When I was maybe 12 or 13, I got a nice old town canoe. And I remember for one of my birthdays, maybe my 13th birthday, I got a trolling motor, and I mounted it on the back with a piece of wood. Mounted a trolling motor on it, so I'd be in the inlets and moving around Old Hickory Lake and the coves, fishing quite a bit. So yeah, and my brother has a boat, so I spend some time with him fishing sometimes. How much cardio do I do? Currently, right now, today's day 2, week 15 of the cut. I started at 215 or 216, and as of this morning, I was 190.8. The cardio has gotten progressively greater over that 15-week period. For my baseline, it's about 30 minutes a day. During a maintenance phase, 30 minutes a day. But I have currently worked my way up to 60 minutes every day now. 30 minutes of that is fasted cardio before breakfast, and then another 30 minutes post-workout after I get done lifting. And when I was aggressively having to lose hundreds of pounds, I went through long stretches where I would do 90 minutes of cardio a day, which I'm in good shape, and I was in really good shape then too. But that does start to wear, no matter what kind of cardio you're doing, it starts to, your hips start to ache a little bit, your knees start to ache a little bit, especially if you're an old man like me. And I do think that much cardio has diminishing returns. And it's not a long-term sustainable solution. The restriction of the diet is definitely more important than the output, caloric expenditure of cardio, but it's a tool. It's something that you can use to increase the amount of calories that you're burning while you're restricting calories. And there's some balance there. How much can you take of caloric restriction and how much can you take of the cardio? I only have maybe a week or two left I'm already pretty darn lean. So I don't have but a week or two left of the cardio, so I doubt I'll bump it up any more than the 60 this time. I don't have maybe just a couple more pounds left. Anyway, 60 minutes a day right now. Once I revert back to a maintenance style plan, I'll be doing 30 minutes a day, potentially 5 days a week, but never less than 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and probably more like 6 or 7 days a week, because I just feel better when that's the first thing that I do every day is 30 minutes of cardio before I start cooking my food for the day. R32 says, wants me to expand on peptide use, because I've talked about in some of these videos before that I do use a couple of different peptides. The first peptide that I use, just to give you the timeline for context, October of not quite 3 years ago now, so 2 years, it's week 143. Today is Saturday is the end of week 143. I keep it all tracked in my notes app. I told you guys that in a previous video that I track everything in my notes app. So 143 weeks ago or so, when I started this thing, I wasn't using anything at all. Maybe I don't even think I was using creatine back then. I might have been using fiber. I know I was using fiber powder back then. Multivitamin, vitamin C, maybe some fish oil here and there. Usually I'd cover that with the salmon. But I lost from, at the time I was maybe 350 when I got started, and got from 350 down to 190-ish, 192 the first time. And that took me about, and when I say the first time, I mean, I might, after I got to where I wanted to be, I would maintain a little bit, maybe in the 200 to 210 range, something like that. Then I would cut again, hopefully having gained some muscle, kind of maintain. And this is the second or third time that I've done this since losing that massive amount of weight. But since that time, I lost all the weight without the use of any peptides at all, even BPC 157 or TB 500. Hopefully that timeline I just gave you made sense. But from October, let's put it this way, from October of 2023 until I had lost all the weight for the first, in that initial chunk down to 190, 192, that must have been late 2024, early 2025. In that time, I wasn't using any of these at all. But I'm going to say it's been about a year ago, because we're at the end of June of 26. I'm going to say it was late 25 or somewhere 3/4 of the way through 25. I started, even before that, I started experimenting with the BPC 157 and the TB 500, mostly for this arm. But I was having some hip pain too. And, I'm just an old man, so things start to break down. And the BPC 157 and TB 500 combination really helped with the hip. Really helped with that. I would say that it's essentially not a problem anymore. I think it was more like an overuse thing. I was doing all that time on the bike, like I said before, up to 90 minutes a day for long stretches for months. But the BPC seemed to heal whatever that issue was. And I've been injecting it in my shoulder now for at least the past, I want to say, month or so. And it seems to be helping that too, but it's almost like pain relief. I know that some people have, and I've consulted with ChatGPT a little bit about it too. ChatGPT says there are other people out there who think of it like a localized pain relief type of thing. But of course, there's also talk out there about how it can increase angiogenesis, which would increase blood flow to the area so that it can help literally heal and recover in that area. But I don't even know what's wrong with it. So that's the problem. On Monday, I'm going to the ortho doctor and we'll find out for sure. BPC 157, TB 500, I find that combination to be helpful and useful, and I like it. Hopefully it doesn't give me cancer. But about a year ago, as I was just about to say before I went off on a tangent about BPC, about a year ago, I got a prescription for sermorelin. And I've used sermorelin and ipamorelin in concert together. For a while, it was just the sermorelin by itself at 300 micrograms per night before bed. And at first, it was just 5 days a week. But the sermorelin and the ipamorelin work together in an interesting way. They both, for anybody here who doesn't know, I'm sure you guys probably do, but for anybody who doesn't know, it increases your body's ability to produce more growth hormone. It's not taking growth hormone, and I've never taken growth hormone. And I'm not considering taking growth hormone, at least not right now. If there was a time down the road as I get older where I thought I needed it, I would consult a doctor about maybe getting a prescription for it or something like that. But I will say that from everything I've ever read, you're after 30 or 35 or especially 40 and plus, your growth hormone declines significantly. And the sermorelin and the ipamorelin can help your body produce more of its own natural growth hormone. One thing that it doesn't do, so I would caution anybody thinking about it, it doesn't enhance your growth hormone levels. Like if you only produce, the equivalent of, let's say, 2 international units of a prescription dose or something. If you only produce 2 international units a day in your body, then it can't. These peptides can't make you produce 3 or 4 or 5. But if your body has the capability of producing 2, but you're only producing, say, 1.5 or 1 because your body's slowing down its own production, you can bump that up closer to that 2 mark, that ideal mark. So I've been doing that. And so the ipamorelin and the sermorelin, my understanding of them is that one of them increases the intensity of the pulse, the growth hormone pulse that you get, especially if you take it before bed, you get pulses of growth hormone when you go to sleep. So one of them increases the intensity, the other one increases the frequency of the pulses. So if you only take one, you're only getting, a little bit of a boost in intensity. And if you only take the other, you're only getting a boost in frequency. If you take them together, you maximize the intensity and the frequency and get a better boost. So I do like to take sermorelin and ipamorelin before bed, especially right now. If you've ever gone through a calorie deficit, especially a significant one or a steep one, and you've ever been 15 weeks deep into it, trust me, it makes falling asleep and staying asleep at night more difficult because you're hungry, and it's hard to fall asleep when you're hungry and not a little bit hungry, not hungry for a week or 2 weeks or 6 weeks, but when you've been hungry for 15 weeks and you're going to sleep with your stomach growling and all you can think about is food, and cortisol is high because you're lifting weights every day and you're doing cardio and all that stuff. It's worth it. It produces the result that you want, but it makes it hard to sleep. So if you take, now for me, I've experimented with 250 micrograms of each before bed, and I've experimented with up to 500 micrograms of each before bed, and it definitely helps you fall asleep and stay asleep at night. So those are the only things that I've ever messed around with in terms of peptides. So BPC 157 and TB 500 come together typically, but you could buy the BPC 157 by itself. I've done the BPC 157 by itself. Maybe they were out. I can't remember why, or maybe I just wasn't thinking too hard about it when I purchased it. But it didn't have the TB 500 in it, and I don't think it worked as well. I was still having pain in my shoulder when I was using just the BPC. So I think the BPC 157 for me and TB 500, unless it was a placebo effect, I think it's better. and the sermorelin and the ipamorelin. If I continue to use this long term, the next time I make a purchase, I might purchase the CJC with ipamorelin, because they tend to come together in a bottle. So probably cost saving and not having to draw out of both different vials all the time. So, and the CJC works very similar to the sermorelin from what I understand. So that might be something that I'll do in the future, but similar idea, just growth hormone pulses. You get the idea. Those are the only things that I have any personal experience with. And it's my own personal experience has been good. Be careful to, get it from somebody that's reputable. I wouldn't recommend going around buying them from these strange sites that don't have, at the very least, look for something with a good certificate of analysis and check to see if the certificate of analysis has a signature by a real person who runs a real lab and that the real lab exists and all that kind of stuff. That's just the bare minimum that you can do to make sure that you're not, buying something that somebody made up in the sink of their apartment or something. My thoughts. GD 585. Do I like sports? Do I like the World Cup? I'm not a soccer guy, but I do like sport. I'm a big fan of combat sports. Some of the people from the OG MISC know that I was the MMA guy for years and years and years. I would always post the official fight threads, like back, especially from I'm going to say from the early UFCs up until UFC 200. I was the guy that made all the threads, official UFC 100, watch thread or something like that. And then I would post who was fighting. I would post, the Wikipedia page at the time or whatever, and pictures of the fighters who were fighting and their records and stuff like that. I did that for a long time until, it got to the point where somebody else was trying to sneak in and do it before me. And I thought, well, if they want to do it, let them have it. But anyway, MMA, love boxing when a good boxing event comes up. I'm even into the celebrity boxing stuff, at least in terms of Jake Paul and guys like that, and kind of guys that I used to really like watching fight in MMA, Nate Diaz, guys like that who are into boxing now, Mike Perry. Love that stuff, man. Love it. I grew up playing football, so I used to be a big Titans fan. I used to like watching football, but I'm really way more into MMA than I am football. And I can't really get into basketball, football. I like the sport of powerlifting. I used to compete in it, and I like to follow powerlifting. I like the sport of bodybuilding. I follow the events. When the Arnold Classic, I went to the Arnold Classic one year. When the big ones come up, like the Pittsburgh Pro, the New York Pro, I'll watch the live streams. The Mr. Olympia, I'll watch the live streams, even if it means I got to pay $20 to watch it or something like that. Same thing with the Arnold. Sometimes those things are free, and usually they're free. I like bodybuilding. I like the World's Strongest Man. I like strength sports and combat sports. Those are the two things that I'm most into. What are the most interesting places I visited? I'm not the most well-traveled guy in the world. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've been to Canada when I was a kid. We went to Niagara Falls. I've been to Jamaica. My wife and I went to Jamaica. My wife and I we've been to Panama City. We've been to Myrtle Beach. I've been to Baltimore. I've been to spend some time in Baltimore, spend some time in Virginia. I live in Middle Tennessee, so, there's lots of Civil War type stuff around here. I've been to the Hermitage, which is Andrew Jackson's home. I've been there multiple times. Probably not the most well-traveled or interesting person to talk to about places I've been or whatever, because I just haven't done a lot of that yet. I'm maybe one of these days when my wife and I retire, we'll have a chance we kind of want to go to Ireland, which is where both of our ancestors are from, but I don't know, I wouldn't mind going to Japan one day. But yeah. What are some suggestions for a weak core and pelvic tilt? I'll be honest with you, I don't have much of a suggestion for pelvic tilt, even though I do think that I'm probably, the older I get, the more I'm starting to suffer from that. Sometimes I will feel myself, it's almost like I'm resting my hips or my glutes underneath my low back or something. It's like you're sitting down, but sitting down on your quads or sitting down on your hamstrings. So I think in some ways, I think it's just a postural thing. If you kind of consider the way you're standing, the way that you're holding yourself up, tucking your butt underneath you as you're standing, probably not good for your spine long term. But to be honest with you, I haven't given that enough thought in terms of how to fix that besides posture. Weak core. Well, I don't know how much you lift weights. We've talked about this before. You've asked questions about lifting weights before, so I assume you lift weights. If you're doing, even like any kind of squatting, deadlifting variations, even machines and stuff like that, you're really having to use, to some extent, you're having to use your core. I know some people make fun of that word core, but it is what it is. I know we're talking about abs and low back and even to some degree your erectors and stuff like that. But if you're looking for exercises that you can do to strengthen that, anything. I mean, I use the ab wheel over here quite a bit. That'll get the job done. I do standing cable ab raises using the cable machine. Even things like, I can feel it when I'm doing heavy press downs with the cable. You can really feel that you're having to tighten your abs to keep yourself, keep yourself stable. Farmer's walks, you're having to keep yourself tight. I would think, deadlifts, squats, anything like that. But if you're looking for something to isolate that, then I would say ab wheel is a good one, whether standing, and if you can't do standing yet, maybe start on your knees. Standing cable ab pull downs, farmer's walks. That wouldn't be an isolation anymore. So yeah, cable ab pull downs. Oh, planks. I don't do them. Maybe never even have, but I think it would probably be helpful. Next, Average Kenneth. Oh, I should have added him to the list of people with suspicious questions. Average Kenneth says, where did you bury her? The only her that I've ever buried is our family dog, Lily, who died, I'm going to say it's been 12 years ago now. And the reason I think it's 12 is because we have our dog, Thor, who he's 10 and a half now, and we got him a year or two after Lily. They're both boxers. Lily was an older boxer. She was 10 years old, which if you don't know boxers, you might not know that is a very old boxer. That's about as long as they tend to live. Now, every now and then you'll find one that's a little bit older than that, but it's not very often. Thor is 10, and he's the best dog I've ever had in my life. Love him to death. So it'll be a sad day when Thor's gone. I did bury Lily, and it was very, very sad. She was a very good dog. And I'll tell you a little story. When I found her, there was some stuff leading up to it. We knew she was sick and we knew that she had cancer. But when I found her, it was awful because she had gone in and buried herself underneath some towels in the laundry room. She buried herself underneath there. And when I pulled the towels, because I was kind of confused, like, why are you laying under these towels? And I pulled the towels away, and her face, I'll never forget it as long as I live, her eyes were wide, and she had like a kind of a terrified look on her face. Her mouth was open. And so she died scared and panicked, probably knowing that she was dying or knowing that something was bad, wrong, which is very hard to think about. It's very sad. Poor Lily. But as far as you, Average Kenneth, you're a strange fellow. You're a strange fellow. Large Peter asks about peptides, GH, secretagogues, BPC 157, TB 500. I think I thoroughly answered that question, Large Peter. So hopefully you can take something from what I said about peptides when I answered R32's questions before. All right. Sand says, he's asking me about my diet. I've talked extensively about my diet and what I eat. So the 30-second rundown for anybody who's new, is that I eat chicken, rice, broccoli, lean ground beef like Laura's Lean 96.4, and wild-caught salmon for breakfast. Every now and then I'll get like yellowfin tuna. not the canned tuna, but yellowfin tuna, about the same size, 4-ounce kind of 4-ounce steaks, tuna steaks, I guess you call them. I typically eat 8 ounces of meat per meal. So sometimes I'll do tuna because it's a little higher in protein than even chicken and a little bit less fat than even chicken. So, but those are the foods that I eat. I eat 6 meals a day and about 300 grams of protein, cutting like right now, maybe in the neighborhood of 100 grams of carbs, 30, 40 grams of fat, something like that, in the neighborhood of 2,000 calories. And so, and I've been doing that for 3 years. Now, not low calories like that. I go through phases, like I said before, where I'll be cutting for a while, maintain for a while, cut for a while, to try to get leaner and leaner, build more muscle, whatever. Sand wants to know, what if I'm invited to dinner? What if it's time to go to a restaurant? I can tell you that I told you that I started in October of 2023 in terms of this strict diet. I've been lifting weights for 30 years, but in terms of the strict diet and the adherence and the absolutely following a strict protocol, that's been since October 2023. And I haven't really deviated from that protocol. When my wife was sick, she had cancer, and when we were in the hospital, when we were in the ICU, I would take cans of tuna with me and little bags of like the pre-cooked minute rice or whatever, and sometimes I'd bring a can of hot sauce with me, keep it all in a little lunchbox or whatever, and then I'd eat those throughout the day. I'd even have, during that time when we were in the ICU, there was times where I'd stop at the gas station and buy a box of Metrix bars, and I would eat one of those every 3 hours. Let me tell you something. When you've been eating the way that I eat, like I just described, for 3 years, and all of a sudden you throw a few Metrix bars in there every few hours, your stomach does not like that. Not good. It's like putting cement in your stomach. When you get used to all that real food for that period of time, and now all of a sudden you're throwing in Quest bars or Metrix bars or whatever the case may be, it's like throwing cement in there. So what do I do when it's time, when I'm invited to dinner? I can tell you this. If we're talking about like going over to my parents' house for Christmas, her parents' house for Christmas, Thanksgiving, my parents' house, my sister's house, if we're going places to eat somewhere else besides here that's a family member, I don't eat that food. I'm not that guy that can do that. If you've ever seen pictures of me from 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, you already know that I'm the guy who will just keep eating. I don't have a shut-off valve for whatever reason. So it's easy to say, well, just eat in moderation. It's easy to say. I wish it were true. I wish I could do it. I can't. So I don't eat it. I don't want to be, I'm not, and at first that's really hard. At first that was really hard because it's embarrassing. I don't want to be, because I was 350 pounds when I started. I was 392 pounds 7 or 8 years ago, but I was 350 pounds 3 years ago. And so I'm a 350 pound guy and I'm skipping the meal. What the hell? Why? What's the point? You're 350 pounds. So it's embarrassing at first because you're sticking to something, and here you are, the fat guy sitting at the end of the table, not able to eat when everybody else is. But every time you do it, it gets a little bit easier. And you know, I'm not going to be that weird guy sitting there eating my Tupperware in front of the whole family. You know, I'll have something on the table in front of me if it's a cup of coffee or something like that. There have even been times if I'm over at my wife's house where I'll get a little, I don't know, everybody else is getting these plates and stuff, so I'll put a couple little pieces of fruit on there on the plate. Really, it's for my wife who's sitting beside me, but I don't want to make a thing out of it. I don't want to be the weird guy. So yeah, I'll eat my Tupperware food whenever it's convenient, when I'm not sitting at the table with everybody, you know, and make it weird. In terms of a restaurant, I've been to a restaurant at times. I'm going to say that for the most part, I really don't have to. My wife and I work opposite schedules. I'm a teacher and she's a nurse. She's a nurse administrator. She is a house supervisor. And basically, she's like the principal of the hospital. But she works at night. So we kind of work opposite schedules. I'm really not put in a position where I need to be at a restaurant very often. But if I am, I don't have a problem eating I already told you, I eat 8 ounces of meat per meal and X amount of jasmine rice. But if I'm at a restaurant for whatever reason, my wife and I are going out. My wife and I are going to go to dinner on Monday. I've got no problem ordering the closest thing they have to an 8-ounce sirloin and a plain baked potato and eating that. That's not different than what I would cook at home. I might ask them not to cook the steak in butter, and I might ask for the baked potato plain, and I'm going to add some salt to my butter or to my potato. But yeah, you can get real food. All I'm eating is real food at home. So if they have real food at this restaurant, I'm happy to eat that too. So yeah, it's forced me to be different. So at work, I can't eat the lovely food that comes along. People are always offering me this and that, and I just have to say no, thank you. I'm like, no, I'm good, thanks. I don't make a thing out of it. I'm not that guy, but I'm not going to eat it. Southeast Beast 1 asked me if it's depressing that essentially his question is it depressing that I'll never look like Chris Bumstead? No. Here's the thing, man. I think, and I'm not saying this in a rude way, but I've seen some of your posts before, and I do think you have a negative mindset. And I don't think I have a negative mindset. I think I'm generally an optimist. You pretty much have to be an optimist probably to be a teacher. It's on some level. But I think you are a nihilist, or at least you express nihilistic thought patterns, I think. So you say, is it depressing that I'll never look like Chris Bumstead because you feel like that? You'll never be have an elite physique like the elites out there. No matter what you do, you could probably use all the steroids in the world, and you're not going to be that. You could probably, do all the cardio, eat all the perfect food. I do all that stuff already. I really believe this. To make better progress than I've made over the past 3 years, you'd have to essentially have better genetics than me, and you'd have to put forth more effort than me. And as I'm saying this, I realize that I'm actually taking what I'm saying right now from a guy named Dave Pulcinella, who's a bodybuilder. So I'm not going to take credit for saying what I'm saying right now. I'm going to give Dave Pulcinella the credit for it. But you'd have to do two things. You'd have to have better genetics, and you'd have to work harder. You can have better genetics than me, that's for sure. You can't put in more effort than me, because I've given perfect effort. I've done everything that I can to make progress, and that's enough for me. If it's not enough for you, then I wish I had better advice for you. I would try to be positive. I'd try to think about ways that you can spin it into a positive. Have you put forth your best effort? If yes, then that's something to be proud of. If not, how can you worry about being perfect if you haven't even been your best? How can you worry about being as good as Chris Bumstead if you haven't even been Southeast Beast 1's best? I don't know. But at what cost says, how many food delivery apps do I have? 3 years ago, I only needed one. What was it called? I can't even. Oh, DoorDash. DoorDash. Yeah. Today I don't have any because I just cook all my food at home, with the very rare exception of what I said before. If I go to a restaurant or something like that, if I'm in the ICU with my wife for a week. But yeah, I used to order. Man, I would order sushi from a Japanese restaurant. Man, I'd get I don't even remember what they're called, sushi. I would just get like spicy tuna rolls and tuna rolls. I don't know. I just loved that. But man, I could order so many. I can't remember what they're called, but sleeves, whatever full rolls of those. I'd eat 6 of those things or more at a time. I'd order McDonald's. I'd probably scare you with the McDonald's order that your boy could eat years ago. Leg Broke asks about how to train. Well, it sounds like he knows more about it than me already. I could be wrong about that. But Leg Broke's asking about the supraspinatus and do I do anything for hip rotation? Supraspinatus, I know that there are, I follow Squat University on Instagram and people like that, Matt Winning. So if I was worried about my supraspinatus, if I needed to train that, if I thought that was an issue for me, I would probably look more into. I know they have what do they call them? Like scap raises, where you're kind of banded on both sides of your hand. I'm limited in my view here, but like you pull that apart and then you do things on the wall. I know that kind of thing is probably the most common. I do face pulls. I think of it as a rear delt exercise, but I know that face pulls done correctly train the supraspinatus too. But anyway, face pulls for me. In terms of hip rotation, I do a agility kind of circuit on some of my leg days, where I go through almost like what your football coaches might have had you do back in high school. High knees, karaoke, maybe walking lunges, butt kicks, stuff like that. But also hip openers, where you're walking sideways and you kind of knee up and then out, foot down, up, out, foot down, where you're opening your hip on your right side. Then facing the same direction, coming back, you open up the left, hip out, foot down, up, out, down. I do hip openers like that. I've done a few stretches and stuff like that, kind of post workout for the hips, because, like I said before, I had some hip pain, but I think that was mostly from overuse on the bike, if I'm being completely honest, which I mentioned earlier. That's what I do for hip rotation for supraspinatus. Face pulls, which that's not the highest tier of things that you can do for supraspinatus. So good luck to you. I think you probably know more about it than I do anyway. I'm really not an expert on that. Oh, have I come to the end? Oh, AMOG. AMOG. Yeah. You got like I said, you got your 15 seconds. Anyway, 36 minutes, 13 seconds. This might be the best one yet. Good talking to you guys. I'm going to do another one next week. It's your boy's first day of summer vacation. So I got 4 weeks off. So, yeah, I'm going to be posting workout videos every day. And some nerd will come along and give me 1 star. And whoever you are, bye.